Do you want me to get started?
No, I'm going to let the slides play for a minute.
Oh, they just play through. Okay, sorry.
Just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining. We are going to start our presentation here in just a couple of moments. This slide shows you where the resources and the recording for this session are going to be housed. And so I'll be dropping that link in as we go through this evening. Our next session is next Thursday, March the 11th, session 3. And also added the VR lookup. If you're interested in knowing who your vocational rehab counselor is, you would just utilize this tool. It's something new that they created. And I was mentioning earlier that there are some additional family opportunities that would involve families and their loved ones. And I'm counting on my educators to help get the word out. And if you were to visit this link, you'll find a calendar of events for the 2021 spring calendar of events. And then last but not least, Texas Workforce really needs the feedback from these sessions. That's how they would be able to continue to fund these wonderful opportunities. And so if you would just take a moment, I'll be dropping that link in the chat as well as we go through our evening so that we can collect that data. And with that said, Debbie, I am going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be doing part 2 of this session. And how many were you? I know that Brittany, you weren't in the session before. What about Christina and Melinda? Were you in the first session?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Melinda was, and
okay, good.
Christina, I can't recall if she was or not. And
can they hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I was.
Okay, great, good. I just kind of want, it gives me an idea of, you know, what needs to be repeated, etc. So, but it's new for what this, Brittany wasn't in it, so I'm going to make sure we cover all parts of it. But what we're going to be looking at is looking at strategies to support employment success. And so today, what we're going to do is review the important 2 and important 4, which is the foundation of person-centered thinking. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Debbie Wilkes, sorry. And I am a retired director of special education. And 11 years ago, when I retired, I set up my own business where I support school districts and families in all life's transitions. My clients that I serve are anywhere from 6 years old to about 57. I've had a few that were 60. And we'll talk about transition is not something that happens, you know, when they're 14, but transition is a lifelong process. And so I work with parents, lots of the families I work with, parents might have passed away and now siblings are dealing with the transition. So it's an ongoing process. Plus I work with school districts for systems changes with transition. So we're going to be talking about the important 2 and important 4. We're going to talk about this community arrow and making sure that you're working towards people being out in the community and ways to measure that. We're going to look at the integrated support star and the LifeCourse Trajectory. So we're going to definitely talk about the person-centered approach to planning. I am an associate with the Institute of Person-Centered Practices, and we're really collaborating between University of Texas and Texas A&M. We say that we're the only people that are working together on things, so I'm part of that. And I'm also an ambassador with the LifeCourse training skills. So I've done that through the University of Missouri in Kansas City. And so what I wanted to do was I offered to all the participants last time to send me the beginning of what they were doing with their person-centered plan. And I have a homework review that somebody had sent in, and I wanted to share it with you. We had talked last time about this communication chart, and we had talked about how behavior is communication. And so in my examples last week, we showed different people with using behavior to communicate, and a parent did a communication chart for their son. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to just review that homework that they did so that we could all learn from it, because the only way you're going to own these skills is if you actually use them. And so I'm going to offer the same thing again this time, is if you if you do one of the activities with your students, because I think it's all educators here tonight, and you send it to me, I will evaluate it and give you feedback. So because being taught skills without using them, doesn't really transfer. So this was a homework assignment. And so what we were looking at was the communication chart, and we talk about what's happening, what he does, what we think it means, and how we should support him. Now, the parent did this for the student, and that's why it's third person. It says what he does. If the student had said it himself, it would be what I do. Now, you might remember from last time, this is where you always start. And what the parent wrote was what he does is impulse responses no. When does it happen? When he's asked to do something he will enjoy. What she wrote is it's an impulse reaction, needs to be asked again or get a reaction. What we should do to support him is ask him again or ask why not. This is not done correctly. And I chose it because I wanted you to see how that you need to see the mistake that's so often made. And what's wrong with it is that what he does is he gives a no response. The impulse is what we think it means. And so that's one of the areas where you see this happen over and over again, that what he does is not how he feels. An impulse reaction is what we think it means. So he's asked to do something, his response is no. What do we think it means? It's an impulse reaction. How do we support him? Ask the question again or ask why or why not. So this person is going to say no to the answers. And so if you're working with transition and you're thinking about, okay, this young man is going to, he's in elementary school and he's making a transition to middle school, the teacher needs to know this. It's going to help him better inform the other people how to support him. Let's say the student is 20 years old and he's going to a job site and he's in one of your transition programs. The employer or the job coach needs to know the answer no doesn't necessarily mean no. So that's why this communication chart really gives information how to support. Let's look at this next one. What he does is he crinkles paper and pages and he picks his nose. When does that happen? When he's reading or doing work. What do we think it means? He's nervous. That's all correct. How can we support him? By giving a fidget toy or a tissue. Now, my comment to the mother was, well, let's take this and let's build on self-advocacy. So what he does is he crinkles paper or pages and he picks his nose. What's happening? He's reading or doing work. What does it mean? He's nervous. Help him to ask for what he needs. So it might be, do you need a Kleenex? Do you want something in your hand? But instead of just giving it to him, that you're building that self-advocacy. But the communication chart is a way that you can understand how to best support the individual. I've been working in this field for a lot of years, and my favorite group to work with really and truly are those individuals that do not use words to communicate. I find them very interesting. And I shared in the last session that after having been doing this for over 40 years, I was blessed with a granddaughter with Pura syndrome, which is a very rare disability, but she exhibits a lot of behaviors such as like people with autism, and she doesn't use words to communicate. And this communication chart is just, it really makes all the difference. And we use it, and we use it to support her IEP development. I told Carla today, right before this meeting, I was in a 2 hours and 45-minute ARD with a school district. It was a wonderful ARD with lots of people providing input because she receives BI, OT, PT, speech therapy. So a lot of reports, but they used all of this information to help create the IEP. So today we are going to talk about charting the life course and information from that. And I heard Melinda speak about the charting the life course. If I don't know if you are an ambassador with the organization, but you can become an ambassador by taking the coursework through the University of Missouri at Kansas City, and the programs through charting the life course as person-centered thinking skills are all used by Health and Human Services nationally to create the plans for all of the Medicaid waivers. So today we're going to talk first of all about the first strategy of the integrated STAR. Melinda, have you been using the integrated STAR in your work?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
One of the first things that I say whenever I sit down with a student is I explain, what transition means and like moving from high school to what you want to do after high school. And I said, I wanted to talk to you today because you know you best, And I start with like, what are your strengths? What are you strong at? What do you do well? And I go around to each of those, but I would really like to hear what the eligibility specific, because that's where I've been telling them, this is my homework for you. Once you share this information with me, then I'm going to go and look up resources. So I don't know if I've been doing that piece right, because the student doesn't know, the resources.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, and let's talk about what eligibility specific means. And one of the activities we're going to do is talk about your own integrated STAR support. And I think that helps you kind of figure out what that eligibility piece is.
Okay.
But with it, we do look at the person. When the integrated STAR was first created, it didn't have this section called personal strengths and assets. And I think it's very interesting because it was shared with self-advocates, and they said, wait a minute, you're not talking about what we can do. So the one part of the integrated STAR support is resources, skills, and abilities and characteristics that the individual brings to the table. So what are their strengths? Then we look at relationships. It's families, neighbors, friends, co-workers, church members. It's people. It's not groups, but it's people. And when I talk about that, if I say to a person, they're talking about a group, I might talk to, I'm thinking about a young man that I worked with that was in South Lake, Carroll. And I said about relationships, and he said, well, the football team. And I said, okay, great. Well, tell me who on the football team. And he couldn't name one person. If you can't give me the name of a person, then I'm going to put them in another one of the groups. But these are names. These are people you can name, because you can't have a relationship with somebody if you don't know their name. Then we look at eligibility specific, and that's those are state services, special ed, Medicaid, voc rehab, food stamps, Section 8, etc. And then the community-based, which is school, businesses, faith-based parks, recreation, public transportation, and then technology. And I really have been honing in on this idea of technology. I work with a lot of adults who do have a Medicaid waiver. and but the parents are saying they need 24-hour a day support. Well, to get that amount of support from the Medicaid waiver is very difficult. The parents are wanting to keep them in the community. So we look at this technology piece and I say, well, if they are on the computer or they're watching television or they're doing something like that, do they need 24-hour support during that time? No, because they're busy doing that. So we're able to go through and we're able to pick areas where they really need the support and look at how can we provide the most support by integrating all of the areas. So when you're thinking about the personal strengths and assets, we talk about and this probably are some of the questions, Melinda, that you might ask. What skills or abilities do I have or could I work on to help me to achieve my vision for a good life? And then are there relationships? Are there people in my life, family, coworkers, church members, who will be there for me when I need help with something? When you're working with the 18 plus programs, I find that the person and the families are so put all of their weight in right here, because you say, where are the relationships? Well, it's my teacher, it's the paraprofessional that's with me, it's the person that takes me to the bathroom, it's the person that helps me ride the bus. Any of those things, they all disappear and they will be gone. And if the family and the student are dependent on relationships that are based on the school system, the transition is not going to work. The relationships and the integrated support star has to come from places besides the school. When I used to be over transition, when I set up the first transition program I worked in, what we used to always say is, celebrate what you didn't do. And that meant, what did you do yesterday that you're not doing today for the students? If the students are dependent on you, whether they're going to college or to work, and they're dependent on a school staff person, their programming isn't going to work. So that's why we have got to look at this integrated star to see where else could they get support. If the student is dependent on the teacher to remind them to take their medication or or to do a skill, you're going to say, well, they can't be dependent on me. The funding isn't there for me to be able to build a relationship with somebody else. I better move over here and see if I can use technology to support that. Because if they're dependent on the teacher or the aide for anything, you need to be looking at other places for that dependency or interdependency, because it's not going to be there. So then we look at eligibility services, which is kind of what Melinda was talking about. What services am I eligible to receive based on my age, disability, income, or other factors? And so you want to ask that question. And then community. Am I well known in my community? And what are the places I go and who are the people I see and who I should be part of my good life? Again, when I was a teacher in our transition program, that community was a very important part of what I was going to be looking at for the student. To have a relationship and to be part of a group, it's where you hang out, it's the proximity and the frequency of which you are seen. And so I really want to get I want the students to go to the same place over and over again to build that relationship. I remember I had a student one time who had very significant needs. He was assigned to me after he broke two teachers' collarbones, and that didn't really work. But then one day, the assistant superintendent was in the classroom, and he urinated all over the assistant superintendent's shoes. All of a sudden, they got him the support. It's amazing how it's who you do it to that matters. But he became my student, and I had to figure out how was his transition. So we knew he liked McDonald's. every day. He went to the same McDonald's, ordered the same food, and we got his parents involved with it. It became Christmas, and it was amazing. The patrons brought things to him as little presents. And after he graduated, he still was going to that McDonald's. I don't know if he still is. I'd be a liar if I said he was. But we looked at the community. Where could he go every day and be seen? It's kind of like if you ever watch reruns of Cheers, it's Norm. He walks in and everybody knows you by name. And that's what we're talking about with community, is building those community connections. As I said, I work privately with families, and I work with school districts, helping school districts know how to make that connection. And one of the areas that I really work on that connection is church and or mosques or temples, because that's a place that I have found that that's a really good place where we can work to have connections. It may be eligibility specific. They may go to a mosque because they're eligible to go to the mosque, or you could put it in either spot. But that's where you're looking at those relationships and those places to go. And I already kind of addressed technology. And I think I think with the pandemic, we've even seen more things with technology. I know I have my private clients, and we are using text all the time to keep up with it. I've got 2 adults, one who lives in San Angelo, and he's really working on getting to work on time. And so he has to text me every morning to tell me if I don't hear from him by 8:30, I text him and say, where are you in the getting ready to work sequence? And I have another young man that I was working with that kind of just started not doing well on his job. His boss called me. I wasn't going out because of COVID. We figured out how to do some things with FaceTime. I've also been teaching cooking classes to some of my clients that live in their own homes. And through FaceTime, I'm teaching them how to cook. And we have the same recipes. So those are ways that you can be looking at technology as a source for that integrated support star. So now, you all were with me last time. No, Brittany, you weren't. So we'll catch you up on this. But this was Susan Marie, and you met Susan Marie last time. And I wanted to use somebody that we had talked about before and look at what her integrated star of support is. Last time when we talked about her as far as what was important to and important for her and where she stood on the community arrow. Now we're going to look at her integrated star of support. So with the 2-minute drill, and Brittany, this is a really good skill to use when you're just trying to learn about this student. You say to the parent, and this is to the parent, not the student, imagine that I'm coming and I'm going to give you respite, and you're going to, and you may be gone for 3 days, you may be gone for 5 days. I want you to tell me everything I need to know to take care of your son or daughter. So what medications are needed? Are there any special things you do to help wake her up or prior to going to bed at night? If she's upset, what should be done? What activities does she enjoy? Is there anyone special with whom she likes to play, hang out with, or what to do? What do they do when they're together? So you're looking at these to learn how to best support the individual. And so based on the 2-minute drill for Susan Marie, this is what we found out. That she takes medications for bladder control, medications to control her menstrual cycle. Are there things you do to help wake her up or prior to going to bed? Before going to bed, help her take a shower, let her choose the shower gel and bathe her, help her transfer to the toilet and into the bed, arrange her iPhone and iPad near her so that she can listen to songs from musicals or call during the night if she needs to get up to use the bathroom. Let her choose her clothes in the morning, plug in her iPad. Getting up in the morning, wake up early, and she likes to read romance novels. Help her get out of bed, go to the bathroom, let her brush her teeth and style her hair. If she's upset, what should be done? Give her a chance to catch her breath, and if she keeps crying, remind her to catch her breath. Ask her what's wrong and remind her to use her iPad with Proloquo 2. After she tells you why she's upset, ask to see if she needs a few minutes of quiet. What activities does she enjoy? Using the web to find out information for her friends and family, taking pictures for the yearbook, going out to eat, going to the mall with friends from yearbook, shopping for new clothes, getting her hair done, spending the night with her cousins, riding to the school bus using public transportation, and making rosaries with the altar guild. Is there anyone special with whom she likes to hang out with? Betsy, her cousin, shopping for clothes, getting her nails done, spending the night. Susan, being in the yearbook class and going to school events to take pictures. Her brother Tommy, going to the movies and visiting him at college. Mom, watching chick flicks and going to the library. Dad, listening to music and talking politics. Matt and Glenda, her brother and sister-in-law, spending the night going to movies, going to Brahms to order turtle sundaes, and her niece Stephanie reading books. So that's the 2-minute drill. And as I'm saying this, Melinda, and I'm thinking about you, you could possibly use the 2-minute drill with your students in a different way by asking the questions. And I think that might help you also have them identify their integrated star of support. So let's look at Melinda's integrated star of support. These are some things that we see about her. Her personal strengths are that she's spiritual, she's friendly, fishing, responsible, neat, she's very helpful. And you might find other things to add as well. Her relationship, she's got mom and dad, Josephine, grandpa, Betsy, Tommy, Susan, Matt, Glenda, and Stephanie. Her eligibility specific. Right now, her eligibility specific is she's received special education support, she's a church member, and she's in Special Olympics. Community-based, we've got the Altar Guild, her church, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, the bowling alley, and Brahms. Technology, she's got the iPad, television, her alarm, and her phone. So these are some things that I just picked up just by looking at that to look at that integrated star of support. Now, that's great, but you all are interested in transition. So we need to think about, that's the integrated star, and we need to think about what the current status is. What and who does Susan Marie need for her future? So this is the current and this is the future. And so when we're thinking about that, we think about, well, what is it that she would need if we're looking for a job for Susan Marie? Because what I'm really looking and thinking about is employment or college. So what does she need in the future? So presently, these are some of her. She's friendly, spiritual, fisherwoman, responsible, neat, and helpful. When you think about the future for Susan Marie, are there any other personal strengths based on this snippet that you think, and you unmute yourself and give me some answers, be great. Are there any personal strengths that you think she needs? What are the things that she needs to learn?
Self-advocacy.
Okay. Anything else? Is that you, Melinda?
Yes.
Okay. Ta-da! That was the one thing I picked up, is that she needed to learn to be more of a self-advocate. So that's going to be a strength that she needs. And so if that's the case, then you as an educator know that's the things that you're going to be looking at for her in that area. Okay, we're looking at employment, relationships, okay? So she has all these people now. And think about it. Are there any other relationships? Now, don't talk about eligibility relationships, okay? These are people relationships. Can you think of anybody that might be added as far as a relationship that she might need to reach out to?
Maybe coworkers?
She doesn't have coworkers yet because we're looking
Okay.
for a job for her, but you're right on target with that. Okay, so you're thinking about that. So now you're going to look back at all those people that she interacted with, and you think about she had and what skills did she have. So when you're thinking about that, then you're looking at, okay, she goes to Home Depot. So we might need to go talk to the manager at Home Depot. We've got Lowe's. She's going there with her grandfather. Walmart, the pastor at church, and specific people at the church with whom she makes rosaries. So now we're not talking about, oh, you're going to go to Home Depot. Now, because we're looking at combining the person-centered planning approach along with the skills from LifeCourse, you're going to have those questions. Well, you say you go to the Home Depot all the time. What section of Home Depot do you go to? Is there anybody? Oh, well, we always go to the flower area because I love flowers. Now you've gotten more information. So you can't just look at it's not a two-dimensional or one-dimensional thing. It's getting all the information from everybody. But now we're looking at different places to go for relationships. Eligibility. She had special ed, church, and Special Olympics. What are some eligibility specific things that we'd be looking at for her? My hint to you, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe SSI.
Okay, SSI. My hint to you is this is being offered through Region 11, and who is helping pay for it?
Texas Workforce.
Yes, that's an eligibility specific. So at SSI, Texas Workforce, the local IDD authority. And I put that there because that's where you go if you're going to be applying for class or applying for HCS or Star Plus or Texas Home Living. But those would be eligibility specific things in this case for her. If say it was a person that's going to college, you would still be looking at the Texas Workforce. You would probably still be looking for SSI. You might be looking for IDD, but you also might be looking at FERPA or different places that are going to be providing scholarships, et cetera, because it's going to be based on possibly on her eligibility.
What about, like, if it's college, what about Office for Student Disabilities?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was going to say that as well. Sure.
Yeah, yes, definitely, because that's going to be an eligibility specific because she gets it because of her eligibility. And if she's looking at a specific college, that college would be an eligibility specific because she'd be accepted to that college. So that's how I look at eligibility. Now, in the future, in the community, where are some things that we might be looking at? I wrote down she wants to talk, and let's think differently. Maybe Toastmasters, because we said she needed self-advocacy, and I don't know if you're aware, but Toastmasters has a great program for people with disabilities. And then also, what about the recreation center? Just, it's not, that's not a disability group, but it's looking at what's just in the community. Another one that I should have put down and I didn't was the public library, because remember, she liked to read the romance novels. And, it's proximity and frequency of being at a place that makes relationships. And so, and proximity and frequency could even end up to a job, but you might want to introduce her to going to the library, the public library, and checking out her books. Where I live, it could be Half Price Bookstore. People just hang out at Half Price Bookstore. And that might be the place for her to be hanging out and meeting people. Because when I work with individuals with disabilities, it's really, they lose all of their relationships because, again, I don't spend much time in schools anymore. I'm out on the other side of graduation. And I'm always with those individuals that after they've left school, I typically start working with them. The parents reach out to me after they've been home by themselves or nobody knowing what to do for a year. And they call and say, what do we do? And so I'm constantly looking at those community places to be and go. So you in the schools should be thinking in those terms. I've said to Carla over and over, I've worked in the area of transition since the first transition task force. So I've been doing this for a long time. And then I thought I knew so much. And after I graduated from public school and retired, and I started walking on the other side of that graduation road, I realized how little I knew, and because I now recognize all the different places that we have to access. And that's what I love about this integrative support star, because it helps you think about where you're going to be to make relationships. And then last was technology. So she's got the iPad. She's pretty good with that, television, alarm. So I added, maybe she needs to learn more about the computer. Maybe she needs to know how to use Microsoft Word. So those might be, so the technology is going to be building on those strengths that she already has. So that's just looking at Susan Marie. And so when we look at her plan, this is what her star would look like. You have the present, there are the current, and the future. And so what you're having them write down what they have in the present, what do they need in the future, in all different areas. Any questions about that before we move on? We're going to do more of these though. Okay, so this is Ben's safety and security card. And Ben is focusing on supported decision making. What Ben wants is he wants to have a supported decision making. So right now, his personal assets are that he carries his ID, he uses a debit card, and he can call 911. So those are his personal right now. And in the future, he wants to communicate his wants and needs better. He wants to be able to spend more time on his own. And I like this one, call 911 only if it's an emergency. He knows how to do it. Now we want in the future is we want to learn when to use it. So with relationships, he's got a joint bank account with mom. He's got power of attorney with mom and dad. He's a special needs trust committee with these people. And in the future, he wants to add more power of attorney successors, and he wants to have supported shared decision making. So that's what he's wanting in relationships. Now he has these are state supported systems. He's got personal care attendant. He's got supplemental special needs trust. And they look at all this, they go, you know what? We don't need anything else in the future. So it doesn't mean everything has to be filled out. But for this case, he didn't need anything for the future. Now, when we're looking at community-based, he's got automatic bill payment, direct deposit. He's well known at his library and church, fire station, restaurant, stores, and bus. In the future, we're looking at limited bank account, senior center, Meals on Wheels, and expanded community contacts. So that's where they're going to be working and looking at that. Technology, now he uses the iPad, the phone, iPod, digital watch, online banking, and debit card. In the future, they want that remote monitoring and learn to use FaceTime or Skype. And that's, as I said before, that FaceTime and Zoom, but and FaceTime has just been amazing for me to have real-time opportunities to be able to support the technology. But this is Ben's, and it looks different because Ben is focusing on supported decision making. So your integrated star support is going to look different based on where you're headed with your good life. So here's my integrated star support. My personal strengths are that I'm outgoing, I've got an outgoing personality, I'm friendly, I'm creative, I'm flexible, and I'm very diligent. My relationship based, I have named the people that are my relationship, they're the people that are closest to me. Now, my eligibility specific, this, I had to do this in order to get, when I was working on my ambassadorship. And I had a really, really hard time thinking of eligibility specific. But then I came up with AARP. I'm over 60. I think it's, don't you only have to be like over 55 or something ridiculous now for AARP? But I get senior discounts. I have Medicare now, and I have teacher retirement. So those are my specific, my eligibility specific. I also could put my church affiliation because I get certain things because because of my church affiliation, which I put, and then so my community base, I put All Saints, Stephen Ministry, Library, Uber. I use Uber. The bike trail, I ride my bike all the time. State and national parks. So those are my community-based things that give me my good life. And then my technology is my iPhone, my tablet, my apps, Bluetooth, Facebook, GoToMeetings, Apple Watch, electronic toothbrush, glasses, contacts, internet, laptop, and my credit card. So those are all examples. And I put that out there for you to see, just so that if you think about it for yourself, it makes you become more creative on how to support the students that you serve. Because it's not easy for you to take the time and go, okay, so what is mine? And then when you look at the future as to what you want in the future, it really helps to give you direction, which is what we're looking at with all transition planning, is thinking about the direction and the future of where we're wanting to go. So that's the next thing, is think about what you currently have and what you want in the future. And you have a handout. I believe it's the second to the last handout. And that's the assignment that I'm giving you at the end, but that's for you to consider and to fill out either for yourself or for your students, to think about where are you now and where are you wanting to go in the future. Melinda, is this what you're using with your students?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So now the next strategy, any questions about that? We are going to combine this with the next strategy. Does anybody have any questions about that integrated STAR before I go on? Okay, the next strategy is charting the life course and the basic trajectory. Are you using this, Melinda?
Okay, that one, as what I was doing was taking that, the one that says transition trajectory worksheet, that's where I'm recording the information that the students give me. Then I was going to take that and put it on this life trajectory worksheet.
Okay, well, let's look at the life trajectory. I have found that the life trajectory worksheet is amazing when I'm working with students with learning disabilities. And those are not the examples I have today, but I can talk about them as well. But and as I go through it, I'll share with you how that works. But I have found that this is the best self-discovery process for those students. And I have done this, use this with students in some very challenging socioeconomic areas, as well as in very high income areas. And it's really interesting to do it because I see a real difference occur, but the same outcome. So anyway, it's very effective. But what we're going to talk about is this charting the life course. And we're going to be looking at the vision for the good life and what you want to avoid. So, but in order to do this, you also have to address this concept again of important to and important for, because your life trajectory needs to address that important to and important for. And it's so they should be identifying those things when you're looking at their good life. You want to make sure that they're talking about their good life that gives them those things that they want, status and control, routines or rituals. And you want to listen to what they have to say, both with their words and their behavior, like I shared with you with the communication chart. And you need to address important 4. With important 4 being the issues of prevention of illness, treatment of illness, those things that they need to give them the balance of what's important to and important for them. Recognizing they can't get everything that's important to them. There has to be a balance between the two of them. And no one will ever do anything important for them unless it's important to them. I'm just going to skip through this. What we're looking at when we're trying to do this trajectory, we're trying to help people get the good life that is a meaningful life, that the person has found purpose and meaning through true opportunities to give and contribute. So we know that 2 and 4 have to be present, but we also know they have to be contributing to each other. I'm not going to spend a lot of time since we did this last time, and we'll spend more time later. So with a life course trajectory, the word trajectory, it's a long-term pattern of stability and change, which usually involves a lot of transitions. And with transition, your roles and your status change as you move from one role to another role. And but there's a turning point that produces a lasting shift in that life course trajectory. When I get clients, my private clients, typically they call out to me, they find me somehow because they're in a turning point. Something is happening in their life course that's really changing. Sometimes I get a lot of referrals from attorneys of parents that are seeking guardianship. And before I said I get referrals if a parent dies. I get referrals after they've graduated from high school and they don't feel connected, but there's a big turning point. And it's usually, as I said, it's an abrupt change and it produces long-lasting effects. And we know that each life stage influences the next. And so we need to look at the past life events and plan for the future. So what we want to think about is that good life, the vision, and the trajectory. What is it that you're wanting for the future? And a vision for a good life, the future is not something that we enter. The future is something that we create. When I was young, so much of my life, it seemed to be, it just kind of happened around me. But I've learned that if I take a real plan in my life and I really plan that life, I'm going to get better what I want and my dream will be met. A year before I retired, I knew I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I hadn't yet learned about LifeCourse Trajectory, but I hired somebody, and it was Noreen Jolloway Gill, and I had her come and do a person-centered plan for me. And we had a vision for the good life, and we really planned my good life. It's not something that just happened, but I really made purposeful plans. I looked at how was I going to do this dream I had. A lot of people say, I want to do what you do when I retire. And I said, well, you can just plan for it. Don't think it's going to just happen. So that means you need to have a North Star. You have to know where you're wanting to go. You know, do you want friends? Do you want to have, of course you want the health. So the friends and family, those are the things that are really important to you. The health and freedom of choice and freedom of fear are those things that are important for you. And then you equally have to say a vision of what you don't want for yourself. So we look at the movement towards the vision. And we are going to look at experiences from the past that led to the good life and the things that you want in the future. So some of the areas where we think about the life stages are infancy to early childhood to school age. My granddaughter had, we started her life trajectory right about here, and now we're on to our third trajectory. Every year we are reevaluating and looking at it to see, are we headed in the direction? And I'll say right now, that's all being done for her with her parents and her sister and other family members. But as she gets older, she will be making that trajectory and being involved in that trajectory. But again, our goal with this trajectory is to make sure that there's purpose and meaning through opportunities to get to contribute. The service life is important for is addressed. So everything's taken care of the person, but there's no organized effort to address important too. I am working with a young man right now who's going to be 20 and he has MDCP and he's going to lose that in June. And we're having the hardest time because of COVID. There's not that transition that should be occurring. And everywhere we're looking for the support, the only thing they're addressing is important for. He's a person, well, actually there are 3 different men I'm working with right now. And all of them, everything important for is being addressed, but nobody is even considering important to, as the system is looking at the planning for them. So I love it when I do these trainings with parents, because this is kind of what we look at as the ages that happen. This is kind of what we as educators, we're looking at those different things. These are the things that parents can do to help to make sure that the life transitions are happening. Chores and allowance. It's crazy, but my 5.5-year-old granddaughter who has Pura syndrome has chores, and she gets money for her chores, and she puts the money in her purse, and she goes to the dollar store. Now she's back to going with a mask on, but if she's getting that understanding of work means money, and she's 5. It's being able to make mistakes. It's summer jobs. These are the life experiences that we give to typically developing people, and we need to make sure we help families recognize that those life experiences need to occur for people with disabilities in the same way. Learning to say no, and birthday parties with friends, having play dates. So when we think about this impact of the decision making on the life trajectory, this is a life trajectory that we're wanting for everybody. When we're looking at that service life, this is the trajectory that we're talking about. That everything is defined by the person's disability. They get services, they're taken care of. They might be a state-supported living center. They might be in a level 8 group home. But their life is totally defined by their disability. The okay trajectory, you're addressing the important too. Then we know if we're working towards a pleasant life, and finally the purposeful life. So as we're thinking of this LifeCourse trajectory, we have to also consider person-centered planning, and we also have to consider this the community arrow and where you're headed that way. So the dignity of risk and mistakes. So many times families don't want their child to fail a course. They don't want their child to have something happen to them because they don't want them to have to suffer that mistake. But we have to recognize that that this individual is going to make mistakes. And when I do this, when I've done the LifeCourse trajectory, I really see that the students, when I work with them, they really are defining the things that they've done in the past and learning from them. It's okay to make a mistake. The issue is to learn from that mistake. So we're going to focus on the good life and address important to and important for. So I want you to meet Martha. This is Martha. And when Martha thinks about her good life, her vision is she wants to have a job working 20 hours a week. She wants to get married. If she wants to, I'll be a self-advocate and meet with legislators to give more testimony about the Medicaid waivers. She's considered going to a day program on non-working days, and she wants to live with friends when older who have HCS because she knows about that, because she wants to do this testimony as well. What she wants to avoid is not understanding relationship with males and be taken advantage of, being unemployed, and having no friends. So that's her trajectory. Now we're going to look at experiences from the past that have led to the good life and things that are happening now that lead to the good life, as well as things that are leading to what she wants to avoid. So when you reflect on the past, Martha's been on the interest list for the Medicaid waivers, class and HCS since she was 2 years old. Her parents have established a special needs trust for her, and she's got great advocacy skills, and she's even given a speech at the Down Syndrome Guild. She was a cheerleader helper at high school. She's had an on-campus job in the school library cleaning and shelving books. She makes her own bed. She sets the table and helps make desserts. She carries a wallet with a Texas ID. She attends dances for teenagers with disabilities. She's won medals in Special Olympics for bowling and basketball. She uses a key to come in the house by herself, and she rides the bus to school with general education students. So she's had a real purposeful plan to get that vision for the good life. Now let's look at the experiences from the past that have led to what she doesn't want. Her grandparents have given Martha $10,000, and it was in Martha's name. And so she can't apply for SSI with all that money. And you can't just take that money and dump it into the special needs trust. So it has to be spent in a meaningful way. She flirts with boys and left a dance to kiss a boy. Her speech is very hard to understand. She doesn't understand how much things cost. She has a Facebook page and shared pictures that weren't good. She hangs out with boys and doesn't have many friends. Now, before, and Melinda, I'm really directing this to you as well, is that when I do this with students that have less significant disabilities, I can remember doing one for somebody that his vision was to be an NFL football player, kind of typical things, right? And I didn't change it. I didn't say, how's that achievable? But then we looked about the experiences that he's had in the past that led to the good life. He had been a star player on the football team. He had done all these things. And then when we looked at experiences from the past, he identified that he didn't get to play football for one whole marking period or 9-week period because he failed. And so then we looked at the decisions he had made in the past that didn't lead to the vision. But it wasn't like, it was him self-discovering it, writing it in his own handwriting, well, actually dictating some of it and writing some of it. But I always try to get the students that they can to write parts of it themselves so they own it. But then he self-discovered what he had to do. Nobody had to tell him. And it wasn't that he was preached at, but he saw it as he wrote it out. And if you want, if you email me, I can send you some examples of things like ones like that.
Okay, thank you.
And then this is where things happening now and in the future. This helps to kind of develop the plan for that next year, because Martha was going to go into a transition program, or it was her last year. And so we looked at, what did we need? Well, Martha was going to start paying for her part of the family vacation to use money before she applies for SSI. This family went to nice trips and things like that. And so instead of paying for her airline tickets and her things, Martha was going to start paying for her own. So it was a legitimate way to spend that money that she had. Volunteer at the library in the summer with her older sister. Consider guardianship, power of attorney, or supported decision-making. Be paid for doing chores, and using the money for movies and going out to eat with friends, because remember, she doesn't understand money. And so just teaching it to her in the classroom or on a sheet of paper doesn't work. She needs to earn and spend her money. Attend the Best Days adult program. Work at 3 different types of jobs to learn more about her interest. participate in the summer program with Texas Workforce Solutions, give a speech at the Down Syndrome Annual Conference, sign up to vote, and meet with local representatives and a senator to talk about the funding at the Medicaid waiver. Remember, she wants to give a speech. Well, if you're going to make a speech, you better start smaller. Learn about good relationships with boys, sign up for gymnastics, and learn to use a bus, the public bus, to go to Best Days adult program. So this is what she needs. This is just what she's going to need to be doing. And really, it's almost just a year time frame. This is what needs to happen. Then this is what we need to avoid, that she has more than 2,000 under her social security number and can't apply for SSI, and she uses Facebook to meet boys. So when we look at this, we've identified what her vision is, what to put in place, and what to avoid. So what I want us to do now is I want you to think about, what's my time? Okay. We look at Martha's present integrated support star. So what are some things that you would put in for her personal strengths? Just one or two.
Sorry about that.
She communicates.
Okay, yeah, she needs to improve her communication because she's hard to understand, but she's given a speech to the Down Syndrome Guild, right?
Right.
I mean, that's pretty cool. What about relationships? Well, I have that she's resourceful. She can use sign language. Relationships are mom, dad, sister, grandparents, and cheerleader. Eligibility, Down Syndrome Guild, special education, Special Olympics, and dances. And also she has the community-based dances, House of Representatives. She's already wanting to go out there. The computer, the phone book, and phone and Facebook. So in the future, some things that we need to teach her is maybe to have better skills with her friendliness and watching out what she's doing with boys. She HCS, her class, Texas Workforce, Best Days program, Social Security, the city bus, because we're going to teach her to ride the city bus. So these are some things that in the future that we need to build upon. When you see Martha and you've met Martha, let's do this like we did last time. Go to your chat, and Carla will help me with that. And where do you put Martha? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
It's a 3. I put a 3, Debbie.
Okay. Anybody else put numbers in? Okay, I put Martha at a 3 because 2 and 4 are present, but she doesn't really have a meaningful life or purpose. So I want to quickly, because of time, I want to go through with Morgan. I wanted to show Morgan because Morgan is a younger child. And I want to show you how this trajectory is at all ages. And it works for all different ages. So Morgan's trajectory is written by her parents to be embedded in her community, including church, work, and social with multiple community connections, have life experiences like going on vacations, movies, and other opportunities, have relationships with friends and family, able to express herself and communicate her wants, needs, interests, and carry on a conversation, read, do math to meet functional needs, live in a supported manner so that she doesn't have to live with her parents, be safe, go to Sunday school, be interdependent, able to dress, bathe, fix simple meals, be invited to birthday parties and to other people's homes, and have people come to her birthday parties. She had a birthday party and nobody came. Movement, what they want to avoid is to be isolated, only have exposure to people with significant disabilities, not be treated well and connect to people, because right now she's cute and people connect to her. being left behind, seizures controlling her life, being hurt and not able to tell her parents and others when she's hurt or scared. So her past experiences that have led to the good life is she's always had a mixture of opportunities with daycare in typical programs, and she received all her therapies in either the daycare or separate settings. At the daycare, the parents had opportunities to see the program. She had friends without disabilities in the daycare. She was invited to birthday parties for a child in the daycare that didn't have a disability. She plays with neighborhood friends. Older sisters and brothers play with her. She uses some sign language. She learns new things by repetitive practice. She's beginning to be toilet trained. She walks around the house without a walker. She uses a walker to go long distance, and she helps feed the dog. Her past experiences is that people have had really low expectations, and that she was in a program that only met her therapy needs, but not her social needs. They only addressed important four. She was in a class with students who couldn't talk and didn't challenge her. There wasn't consistency between private school and speech therapy. Many of her signs looked the same, and parents were the only ones who understood them. People don't wait for her response. Family lives too far away and they can't help out. She's had 2 seizures in the past year when she was overtired. So these are the past. So we look at what happened in the past, and then we plan for the future. And this became what was going to be her IEP. She was going to be given opportunities, expected to have age-appropriate responsibilities. She was going to attend the elementary school with her sister and brother. She was going to learn to point to items to show her understanding, use her talker, have birthday parties, go to Sunday school, consider ABA therapy during the summer, continue teaching her, and have her show recognition to people by giving them items when requested. What to avoid was only rely on her version of sign language, her life circling around her therapies, being in a life skills class, being bored. So these were the things they wanted to avoid. So from this, we had Morgan's plan, and this became Morgan's IEP. This is not a real picture of Morgan, because this is my granddaughter. And this was the life my granddaughter was having, in that the school placed her in a program that was only dealing with all of her therapies. We shared this at her ARD before she went into kindergarten. And this was an ARD that was held probably 3 months into being in this class, only dealt with her therapies. And they moved her class, and then she went to general ed kindergarten, which she didn't go to for long because of COVID. But this is my granddaughter's trajectory, and this is reviewed every year. So I share it because it's to give you the vision that it's for all ages. And I know that we in transition tend to work with older kids, but helping families recognize it begins early. Those transitions, the meaningful plans are going to lead to this vision, but you have to have a plan. So when you think about Morgan and you look at Morgan's integrated star of support, these were her personal strengths. These were her relationships. Her eligibility specific was special education and speech therapy. Community-based was her daycare and her talker. She was beginning to use that. So this was her there. And then this is where, so when you're thinking about her, where would you put my granddaughter when you think about her meaningful life? Or her service life to meaningful. What number do you put my granddaughter at? Be a risk taker. Put it out there.
I said 3.
3? I put her at a 2, because the people that were all closest to her were paid or family. There weren't any real connections. She really isn't included in any community life, and so she really was at a 2. And 2's okay. She's young. If you think about a typically developing child, they're probably at a 2 as well. So our goal is to get her here, but right now she's there and that's okay. But we have a plan to move her forward, because if you don't have a plan, life just happens. And and as I say, she's had 3 arts, 3 different trajectories have been put out for you to be thinking about. But our goal is to really help people have a plan for their future, and not just to have the future happen to them. And when you're thinking about the students that you're serving, if you bring them in and they're the ones that are responsible for creating that trajectory, they take ownership with it. When I work with the kids that are in resource, or with students that might be in a behavior type of program, the trajectory really helps them self-realize where they're wanting to go. And I don't know about you, but when some of the students I work with, when you ask what they want to do in the future, they like to do the shock value. I've had students that have told me that they were going to sell drugs, and that's what they were going to do because they could make a lot of money selling drugs. I don't change that. I say, okay, great. So what are your life experiences that are leading to your good life of selling drugs? And then they start changing it, and they'll go, well, Miss, I maybe don't want to sell drugs. Maybe what I want to do is something, they'll tell me something else, but I'm going to spend time before I can get to that good life of talking to them about what's important to and for them. Because by finding out what's important to, mostly important to the person, I might help them think about different job options, different careers. And so it helps, in your spare time, what do you do? And finding those answers, and that can lead to better job options and considerations for the students. So today, your assignment, if you choose to do it, since it's not son or daughter and you're all teachers, if you want to meet with a student, determine what's important to and for that student, and complete that integrated support star. And look at that star and see, are there new relationships that you want to pursue? And consider the good life. I also, since you're all educators, I also do challenge you to consider doing it for yourself. I challenge you to go on and to do your integrated star support now, and to do your own trajectory. Again, I want to remind you that the reason, and I think since I've retired, I have been considered to be a successful person and creating my own business. It couldn't have happened if I didn't plan on it for myself. So I want you to think about either one of those options and turn it into me, and I'll get back to you and give you some feedback for it. So Melinda, you have used the trajectory, and Brittany, have you ever used the trajectory with your students?
No.
Well, then for you, I definitely suggest you try doing it for yourself and think about that, because I find that if you don't practice using the skills, you're not going to be able to use them in other ways. And doing it for ourselves makes it makes it most real. So next week, what we're going to talk more about is the integrated support star, and we're going to look at that LifeCourse trajectory, and we're going to discuss different things for self-advocacy and vocational preparation and college preparation, because I want to give you an overview of what it was, so then we can next week really zero in on how do you use that information to help to plan for the student. But that trajectory ought to be providing you the support that you know what you're going to do with the student. And when you're thinking about transition, and remember what I said earlier on about that integrated star support, if the student's support star is based on school district support, their plan will probably not be successful. You've got to figure out other places for them to get the supports, because the last day of public school has to look like the first day of the rest of their life. So, does anyone have any questions? Can I help them with anything? And do, Melinda, email me and I will send you a copy of an assessment that was done with a person that was actually wanting to go to Oklahoma University. And he thought that was going to be his outcome. It was a real one. So I could share that with you so you can see a plan for a different type of student.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a similar one that wanted to be a physical therapist, and we talked about different things and options, like, you might work at a gym, or you might work, a different, a YMCA or something. I mean, and he started talking about, he said, I don't know if I want to go to school that long, and so